go for higher education, we want to make it more difficult for them to get it. It doesn't make sense to me. We've already made this investment. If we want them to then be, more productive in our society, we should give them the opportunity to go to school. And it's a hard decision. It wasn't an easy decision for me, but it was an economic decision. If we're already doing this for K to 12, and then you have some of these young people who want to improve themselves, why should we make it more difficult for them to do that? The problem is that we let them all in the first place. But now that we're doing that and we're paying for their K to 12 education, we should try to make it as easy as possible for them to improve themselves, in my opinion. Understand other people can differ, and it's not an easy decision, but that's the basis upon which I made the decision, so that you know why I did what I did. This is not an easy thing to fix, but the only way we fix it is if we're honest with each other and we agree on certain things that are true, and then talk together and reason together to come to a resolution so that it doesn't happen again, because that'll be even the greater tragedy. So I understand your concern about it. I think everyone is concerned about it. And I think one of the big failings of this president has been that all he's done is talk about it for 7 years, and he hasn't tried to bring people together to actually solve the problem. He's played politics with it. And that's really unfortunate, and you see other folks playing politics with it now. I'm not going to do that. Let's do it honestly and fairly and directly and address the issues that you're talking about, but not give wild promises that we can't keep. That's when people lose their faith in government and the people who run it, and I'd prefer not to have that happen. So thanks for raising the issue. It's really important. All right. We got some students up in the bleachers. Young lady, we'll go right to yes, ma'am.
All right, hi, nice to meet you. My name is Lily Passaretti. I'm from Vernon Township, and I attend Sussex County Technical School. I just wanted to know what the difference in the health premiums between Super Platinum and Gold would be in your proposed budget.
I know it saves $3 billion per year. I don't remember off the top of my head what the premium is for Gold. It's still significant. Okay. But it would save about $3 billion a year at every level of government put together. Okay. But it's a good question. I should know that number off the top of my head, and I don't. But I'll get back to you. I'll give you the number. So give one of my guys your email address. We'll email you back within 24 hours and give you the answer on what the Gold level premium is. I can't remember it off the top of my head.
So but it would be like a significant difference between how much would it be that, so you said you paid $12 for 4 prescriptions.
Right.
I mean, I pay probably $30 per prescription right now, and I don't have great health coverage, so I was just wondering if it would be taking a huge hit on the upper sector.
Listen, it would for anybody whose premium, whose benefits go from Platinum Plus to Gold, it's going to be a difference. It's going to cost that person more money to go to the doctor, to go to the hospital, or to get a prescription. But I'll get you the exact numbers on how much more it would cost. I don't know it off the top of my head, but it would cost more, and it would land, probably closer to the $3 than to the $30. If you took the midpoint of those, it's probably on the $3 side rather than the $30 side, but we'll get you all the exact numbers, because it's a good question, and then I'll have it written down up here from now on, so when someone asks me, I can do it.
Cool, thank you very much, I appreciate it.
Thanks for your question. All right. Yes, sir.
Thank you, Governor. My name is Mark Warbetz. I grew up in Union County, lived up here in Sussex County for the last 30 years. My question is about the pension and pension payments and the 2011 law. Our pension, if we paid the full pension this year, it would be $3.1 billion.
That's not even the full. That would be what was required under the 2011 law. That would be for the fiscal year starting July 1st.
Okay.
It would be $3.1 billion, which represents, I think at that point, 5/7 of the actuarially required payment. The full payment, if we were to make it, would be $4.5 billion per year from here forward.
But just as per the 2011 law, it'd be 3.1.
2011 law is $3.1 billion.
Okay. And the budget, I believe, is $33.8 billion.
Ballpark.
All right.
Yep.
Rounding everything off.
Yep.
So if we do the mathematics, we would have $30.7 billion left over after we made the full payment. So my question is, if we make the full payment, then we meet our obligations and we still have the 30+ billion left. Don't you think we should keep our promise, fund the pension, and allow this to continue, and at the same time not get our bond ratings knocked down and meet our obligations?
Yeah, no, because
Okay.
what I would like you to do is come to my office and tell me where you're going to find the additional 1.7 billion out of the 30. So let's start with education funding. Education funding is $12.5 billion of the 33 billion, and we're not allowed to touch that per the Supreme Court. So $12.5 billion is off the table for openers. You then go to Medicaid. Medicaid is not an optional payment for us either. It's a partnership with the federal government, at some level 50-50, at some level 90-10. If we tried to reduce Medicaid funding to help pay for this, not only would we hurt the poor people who rely on Medicaid to get their health treatment, but also the federal government would come back and do something they call clawback. If you reduce the benefits, they then come back and take, for a period of time prior to that, all the money they gave you for their 50% share, and you got to pay it back. So it's not only what you would reduce it and how that would hurt folks, but also you'd have to write a check to the federal government for Medicaid. Yeah. That's a multi-billion-dollar part of our budget.
Okay, but what I want to get point across is maybe there is a solution to this, because if...
What? What's the solution?
Maybe shared sacrifice would be a solution.
Like
we've
what?
taken it from, well, we've taken it from the police, the fire, the school
What have we
teachers, the
taken?
workers.
No, what have we taken?
The sacrifice, they're paying more and getting less.
They're not
but
getting less. They're getting exactly what they got before.
the pension benefits have been
No,
decreased.
the pension benefits have not decreased.
There's no more COLA.
Well,
Teachers, the workers are having more taken.
COLA? Are you serious?
Well, that's a benefit,
No
isn't
more
it?
COLA? I mean, the fact is you're telling me that that's a sacrifice, that you don't get an increase in your pension every year that you didn't pay for when in fact you were in the system?
But wasn't it once a benefit that was taken away? And current workers are now paying more out of their salaries for...
Current workers are paying more because current workers weren't paying any, and still are not.
Okay, so...
wait a second, are still not paying anywhere near what they should be paying for the benefit that they're getting. They put in a fraction of what they ultimately get in return. Fraction.
I'm not arguing with that.
So
what I'm saying is...
they've been getting a bargain for years. So we're not even yet close to where they're paying what they should be paying, even with the 11 reform.
Well, back to shared sacrifice.
Yeah.
The police, the fire, these people have paid more in. Their benefits have decreased somewhat, but we haven't gone after everybody.
Who haven't we gone after?
Well, if we...
You want to go
let's
after
just...
the poor people in Medicaid?
No. Why don't we think about...
Do you want me to cut education funding to the kids in schools in New Jersey?
No,
which
but...
I'm, by the way, not allowed to do?
But we could possibly look into rolling back some of the benefits we gave tax credit-wise to 2008, 2007 levels for corporations and some of the rich. For the time being, till we got our feet underneath ourselves.
What benefits did the rich get exactly? Since the year 2001, taxes have gone up on the wealthiest in this state. Consistently gone up on the wealthy. In fact, to the point where we have the most progressive income tax system of any state in the country. The rich in New Jersey pay a higher percentage of the overall income tax than in any other state in the country. We have a millionaire's tax in this state that starts at $400,000 a year. A millionaire's tax that starts at $400,000 a year. So that in New Jersey, we're the only state in America where you don't have to be a millionaire to be taxed like one.
Wasn't that 400,000, that number, didn't that sunset and you didn't?
No, what sunsetted was the millionaire's tax surcharge. We raised the millionaire's tax to 9% for everybody who makes $400,000 a year or more. Then Governor Corzine put a surcharge to raise it to 10.75% on those people. That sunsetted. The Democratic legislature, before I became governor, had the opportunity to do your shared sacrifice idea, and they said, no, thank you. We're not going to extend it. They then, of course, the day I came into office, very soon thereafter, reintroduced it to try to see if the Republican governor would do what they didn't want their Democratic governor to do, which was to, once again, raise the tax and not let it sunset. So yes, the Democrats, Governor Corzine, and the legislature allowed the millionaire's tax surcharge, which raised it to 10.75% from 8.97% to sunset. Okay. And I have been unwilling to allow them to reinstitute it. That which they were unwilling to do in 2009, I've been unwilling to do since I became governor.
All right, I get the idea that we're not going to meet ground here, but maybe another idea, the state legislature gave you a bill at this past February or January that you vetoed to pay the pension off, or to make the pension payments in quarterly payments, just like most of us do in our property taxes.
Sure.
All right, now you vetoed it.
If you don't have the money, what difference is if you don't have the money every quarter or you don't have the money at the end of the year?
Well, if I took your philosophy, when my tax bill comes, I should pay my tax bill like you pay the pension payments. I'll wait to the end of the year around Christmas time. I'll sit there, look in my checkbook and go, whoa, I don't have enough money to pay my property taxes. Yeah. So what I'll just do, I'll do the Christie, which we'll call the Christie clause, and it gets me off my payments.
Go ahead and do that. That's your option you want to try. We'll see what happens.
But shouldn't we have reasonable, shouldn't Trenton be reasonable?
Except you see, here's the difference. When you decide not to do that, you're deciding that you don't want to spend your money. Here's the difference. If I don't have the money, it's not because I didn't work hard enough. If I don't have the money, it's because I didn't take it from all of you. So your deal is, what you want me to do, and I understand, you want me to raise taxes on everybody else to make this payment. When these folks get higher and better benefits than anybody who is paying for it, and they get better and richer long-term benefits than anybody who's here. And these folks in this state already pay some of the highest taxes in America. So what I'm saying is, you want shared sacrifice? Then have health benefits like everybody else has. Like everybody else has.
But Governor, you have the money.
I don't have the money.
You have $30 billion, $700 million that you do not wish to pay.
No, it's not that I don't wish to pay it. I have other legal requirements. I said to you, where do you want me to do it? We've taken $12.5 billion off the table for school aid, which the Supreme Court absolutely prohibits me from touching. When I tried to reduce that by $500 million in 2011, the Supreme Court came back and ordered me to put the money back in. $500 million out of, at that time, about $11 billion. They ordered me to put the $500 million back in. Medicaid and all the other federally related programs that are pass-throughs in the budget, I can't take that money because if I do, the federal government's going to come back and tell me they want their share back. You think this is easy.
No, it's not.
Want to make a
no,
point.
it's not. It's not an easy decision.
We've reduced spending already $2.5 billion on everything other than pensions, health benefits, and debt service over the last 5 years. So I understand that you think you're making a really great point here. It's your point. Congratulations. But it's not going to happen. And it's not going to happen. And if the Democrats had a way of doing it, they would. The only way, you don't hear them suggesting one reduction in spending anywhere, including on any type of tax credits that you're talking about, which, by the way, are payable over 20 years. And so you have to divide whatever number you want to use by 20. And that's the amount of money you have for this fiscal year for any tax credit. So my point to you is the money is not there, and the only way that it would be there is if you want to raise the sales tax from 7% to 10%, or you want to raise the income tax on everybody in New Jersey by 29%. If you want to do that, that's a perfectly logical position. I happen to disagree with it and won't sign it.
But let's go back to the bill you vetoed. If you made quarterly payments, let's say I go to my town hall and say, listen, I'm going through a rough time and I can't make my property tax payment. What I would do is they would put me on a payment plan to make those benefits, to pay that property tax down. The same thing as the obligation with the pension.
And as governor, I have put more money into the pension system than any governor in history. And so, your argument, if you want to make it, go back and see the previous 5 governors and ask them why they didn't do the things they were supposed to do, and the legislatures who didn't do it. But just remember one thing, we put more money into it than anybody. This pension is in better shape because of the reforms we made. It's absolutely true than it would have been if we had not made the reforms. And I had not put, you cannot argue with the idea that if you put $4.2 billion into the plan in 5 years, that you have made the plan better than the people who put $3.4 billion in over 15 years. So I'm sorry that I'm the guy who's being responsible about this and actually has put more money in than anybody else. But It is not as simple as you on the back of your envelope taking $30 billion and saying, well, there must be there somewhere. Because guess what? If it was there, the Democrats would be doing it too. And the only idea they come up with is to increase taxes. So I'm not going to get in any further debate with you about it.
I thank you for your time, Governor.
I understand your position, but what I want to tell you is the progress that we've made on this has been significant. And what we need to do now is to get the people who are receiving extraordinary benefit, more extraordinary than anybody else in society receives, that those folks have to understand that they've got a choice to make now.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
In your 2011, you made a promise. We weren't able to keep it, and now we have to go back. So it was a 2011 law that you signed. It was your promise to us.
I'm aware. It was not only, by the way, it was not only my promise. It was the legislature's promise.
Correct.
And
absolutely.
the legislature has not funded it either. So let's remember something. If it was going to be able to be funded, they'd fund it. And that's why I said what I said off the top. With all the parades and the standing on podiums and saying what they fully funded, go to the Democrats in the legislature and ask them where the money is. Ask them the same question you asked me, and I'm giving you the honest answer, which is it is not there. It's not there. Now, when we passed this law in 2011, both the Office of Legislative Services and the Treasurer's Office both projected that we'd be able to make these payments.
So what happened?
The revenue didn't come in. They're projections. The revenue did not come in. So if the revenue doesn't come in, you've got two choices. Either lower costs or increase taxes. Those are your two choices. My choice is to lower costs. I do not and will not increase taxes on the people of New Jersey to pay for this. I'm not going to do it. Come right over here.
Hi, my name is Mary Ann Holdsworth. I'm from Butler. I have a question about the Abbott districts. You brought that up about how under the Supreme Court you're not allowed to touch that. They have to be funded. Well, this has been bothering me because I worked in Newark and I saw what the Newark Board of Ed was doing with my money. We shared a building with them. Is there any way that that funding can be restricted so that they only use it for educational purposes and not company cars?
I only wish it were so. This is a fight I've been having for 5.5 years. The fact that 63% of state aid to education, 63% of state aid to education goes to 30 districts. And the other 37% goes to the other 550 districts. That's required by our state Supreme Court. When I tried to change that by $500 million, they ordered me to put the money back. And fact is, it is the ramification of the Democratic Senate's refusal to allow me to appoint justices to the New Jersey Supreme Court. There is still a vacant seat on the New Jersey Supreme Court that's been vacant for years. And the reason that they won't allow me to nominate someone is because they don't want a majority of Republicans on the Supreme Court. So they just refuse, regardless of the qualifications of the person. And we have a Supreme Court that has said that that amount of money, the way it's spent, and the amount, they say we don't even spend enough yet. They want us to spend even more.
Well, who determines the Abbott districts? You have districts like Hoboken and Harrison.
The Supreme Court determines.
How are they Abbott districts?
First of all, there aren't, I don't want to get too deep in the weeds on this. There technically are not Abbott districts any longer. The legislature changed the state school funding program to something called the School Funding Reform Act, SFRA, that eliminated Abbott districts, so they're not technically Abbott districts anymore, but those same previous Abbott districts are treated disproportionately well in this new School Funding Reform Act, which was passed under Governor Corzine. So the original 30 were determined by the New Jersey Supreme Court, and the legislature has done nothing to change the membership of that 30, even though, as you rightly point out, there's a town like Hoboken, for instance, that's still considered an Abbott district, but that has become, in this intervening period, an incredibly well-off municipality in this state, with business and new people moving in, new residential, that has really improved the fiscal situation in that town. Is it really an Abbott or an underprivileged district anymore? I'd say to you it is not. But, you know, this is what happens, everybody, when a non-elected body takes over a large share of public spending. Because you can't do anything about it. Listen, if the legislature and the governor had made these determinations and you didn't like them, you could kick me and Oraho and Space out of office. Betty Lou DeCroce, you kick us all out if you didn't like it. Supreme Court, no can do. And in fact, if you saw a Supreme Court justice, you know, in the deli up here in Sparta somewhere on a Saturday afternoon, and you said, hey, I'd like to ask you, why is Hoboken still an Abbott district? They would say to you, I'm sorry, I'm not allowed to discuss that. You're like, yeah, but wait a second. A lot of my money's being spent on that, and you were the one of the 7 who determined that. I'd like to know why, and I'd like to get an explanation. And they said, I'm sorry, not allowed to talk about that. That's the problem with putting unelected folks. You know, like it or not, you know, the elected folks have to answer your questions, have to be responsive, and ultimately, you have the authority at the ballot box to be able to decide whether they keep their job or they don't. Supreme Court, not the same case. And the Democrats in the Senate have decided that even though you voted for me twice, and I told you when I ran that I would put Republican members on the Supreme Court to change it, they have refused to allow those people to even be considered. And, you know, that's a problem. So I wish I could solve that problem for you. I tried. And until we get a change in the Supreme Court, we're not going to see a change. I don't believe in that because I don't think there's the will in the legislature to do it, and I don't think that there is the desire in the Supreme Court to change it, given its current membership.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you for your question. All right, let's go over here. This lady right here.
Good afternoon, Governor. Thank you very much for coming up here to Sussex County. I am a Warren County resident. My name is Wendy Getz. I'm from Freeland-Heisen. I have a short comment.
Sure.
And this lady asked if you were going to run for governor or run for president as well. So I'll come to that question back. I'm sure the gentleman over there was asking you to also tax the corporate rich as well. My comment essentially is the people of New Jersey and our legislators have put forth environmental bills of which have all passed. The people have voted for them and the legislators have voted for them. Many of them, if not nearly all of them, you have vetoed. So if you are going on to a presidential stature, I'm asking for your stance and your opinion, your view on the Trans-Pacific Partnership and concerning global trade and how that could endanger us. If you're going to be running for president, we would love an answer and a view and opinion on that and the process of fast tracking. And my little one wanted to say something too.
Yeah, what you got?
Ready, go.
No fracking, no fracking, no fracking,
Waste.
That's okay. Well, I guarantee you this: there won't be any fracking in New Jersey because we don't have any shale. And some of the laws that I vetoed that you talked about are nonsense, like a fracking ban in New Jersey. This would only happen in our legislature. We're in a state where we have no shale. They want me to ban something that we don't do. I mean, like, what's next? You want me to ban orange groves in New Jersey too? I mean, so there's some stuff that's just nonsensical. And by the way, we have a vibrant, active chemical industry in this state that helps to employ a lot of people. And first off, that law is unconstitutional, and it was vetoed because it is unconstitutional. Because you cannot restrict, pardon me? Yeah, I can't tell you how many times the legislature passes things that are both nonsensical and unconstitutional. Sometimes they do it together. And that's why I've told folks that the job of the governor many times is to be the adult supervision in the State House. I mean, the fact is that we have a Democratic majority right now that passed a fracking ban in New Jersey when we have no frackable shale. I know, that passed, these guys did not vote yes, by the way, that passed a ban on fracking water coming into New Jersey to be processed and cleaned by our chemical companies when they know that that is an unconstitutional infringement on interstate commerce. And that's why I vetoed it, because I wanted to spare you all the expense of us getting sued, having to go to court, paying the lawyers to go to court, and then losing a case that everyone knew we were going to lose. Why would you say then would the legislature, would any members of the legislature, then vote yes for something, one, that they knew didn't happen in the state and want a bill to prevent it, and why they would pass something that everybody knows is unconstitutional? Because they're playing to the grandstand, everybody, and they know that in the end, I won't do it. So it's a free one. They get to go to folks who share your view and say, look at what we did. We agree with you. We voted for you. Doesn't that make us wonderful? And in the back of their mind, they know, no cost to us, because the boss in the corner office ain't gonna let it happen anyway, so we don't have to worry about getting sued, and we don't have to worry about looking stupid. This is the same thing. We had the ban that was passed on gestational crates for pigs. Remember this one? This has been passed a couple of times. How about this? And people in Sussex County probably know this better than in most places. We don't use gestational crates for pigs in New Jersey. You can't find one pig farmer in New Jersey who uses gestational crates, yet they pass a bill to ban what's not happening. Why? Because a bunch of people from the ASPCA and others came to them and said, this is an awful thing, we're trying to get it stopped in the rest of the country, so why don't you guys do it? And that'll put pressure on other states where it actually does happen. Well, I don't believe our legislative process should be used in that way. I'm happy to prevent things in New Jersey that are being done that are bad for the general good. But when they're not being done, what are we doing? I sign enough nonsensical stuff, by the way. I don't veto all the nonsensical stuff. I can't tell you how many different days, weeks, and months are named after certain causes in this state. There is not a day, week, or month left that is available to have a cause named after it. And a legislature has somebody come to their office and say, this is an awful thing, please name May 28th after this cause. And they go, you bet we will. And they pass it and send it to my desk. I think it's crazy, but I'm like, all right, so May 28th is now whatever day, boom, okay, I sign it. I mean, but things that have a real life impact, I'm not doing it. And I'm certainly not doing nonsensical things like banning fracking in a state where we have no frackable shale. Come back to me on the day we have frackable shale and you want to have the fracking debate, we can have the fracking debate. But let's not have the fracking debate when we have no frackable shale. And by the way, I've now said that twice. Do you know how hard that is to say? And not say something that's really bad, right? With 12 cameras running at the same time? So my fundamental disagreement with your point is that I'm not gonna do things just for show. Not gonna do things just for show. If there's a problem that needs to be fixed, I'll work with people to fix it. If you're just trying to play to the cameras, then you go ahead and play to the cameras. I got hired to do the real job that you sent me to do, not showtime. So I can take 2 more questions. Yes, sir, right there. Yeah, right. No, the guy back there with the baseball tie. I like the baseball tie.
He said you like that baseball.
Well, see, everybody has a strategy, right? He knows I'm a baseball fan. He got the question for the baseball tie.
Governor, Andrew Milling. I'm from Frelinghuysen also, but I work at Weichert Realtors in Sparta. Your ideas, if you could just share your ideas again briefly about your plans on, if you become president, reforming or fixing Social Security and Medicare, please.
Sure. Right now, in the federal budget, 71% of our federal budget now goes to entitlement programs. 71%, Social Security, Medicare, Medicaid. That means everything else we do as a federal government, everything else is covered by 29%. If we don't change that, not only will we have no money to invest in lots of other things that we care about in this country, whether it's infrastructure, education, research and development, national defense, or God forbid, tax cuts, while we're spending 71%, these things are careening towards insolvency. For instance, a Harvard-Dartmouth study just came out in the last week or 10 days that says that the Social Security Administration has overestimated the amount of time left in the solvency of the Social Security system by double. So that we're even much closer to insolvency of the Social Security system than the Social Security Administration has led us to believe, because they say the Social Security Administration has this is a great combination, get ready for this, overestimated fertility in the country and underestimated life expectancy. Why does that matter? Well, if you underestimate life expectancy, people are living longer, will be drawing checks for longer. If you overestimate fertility, that means there'll be fewer people working later to be able to support the benefits that are being paid. So we said a few things about Social Security, Medicare, and Medicaid. On Social Security, just to give you the headlines. On Social Security, we said we need to increase the retirement age 2 years over the next 25 years. So everybody who's getting Social Security now or will reach retirement age in the next 25 years, you're not going to see any difference. But we're living longer, as we said before. The average age expectancy now for women is 83 in the United States. The average life expectancy for men is 79. Now, when I say this, most of the time, like, women chuckle, but in the last 10 years, we're catching up to you. The gap was like 6 years before, now it's 4, so keep an eye on the rearview mirror. We're catching up. But it's 83 and 79. When these programs were developed, they were developed with people who had their life expectancy in their 60s. And so we have to make, eligibility a little bit longer. Second, I've talked about means testing for Social Security. And what I've said is this: if you make more than $200,000 a year in retirement income, this is after you're done working, then you shouldn't get a Social Security check. You don't need it. I think Social Security needs to be there to make sure that none of our elderly grow old in poverty. I don't want any of our elderly having to decide whether to, pay the heat or buy food. That shouldn't be what happens to our elderly in this country. But if you're making more than $200,000 a year in retirement income, you all know what that means. That means, to throw off that kind of money, that means you've got like $4 to $5 million in savings. Someone who's got $4 to $5 million in liquid savings that's throwing off $200,000 in income, you're not worried about growing old in poverty. Congratulations, that's great. But we need to means test these things to make them more secure and safe for the people who really need them over the long haul. Same thing with Medicare. Right now, on average, we subsidize the Medicare premiums for folks by 75%. What I've said for folks, again, who make $200,000 a year or more, we only should subsidize at 10%. So, because my view is, if you have the money to pay for health insurance, you should spend the money and not spend the money of other people or put the program in duress for people who really do need it, who don't have the money, right? Now, and on Medicaid, I think we need to trust the governors more. Think about this on Medicaid. In the last 25 years, the American economy has grown 200%. GDP has grown 200% in the last 25 years. In the Medicaid program, in the same 25 years, it's grown over 800%. Now, I've admitted before I'm not a math major, and that's why I went to law school. But I could even figure that out. Economy growing at 200%, Medicaid growing at 800%, not going to work. We need to trust the states more to do more. I think the states should get a per capita grant per person on Medicaid and let them manage that money the way they see fit. And the reason why per capita is important is it's not a flat block grant, which you've heard about before. And if you wind up getting more poor people in your state, you then have to care for them within that same amount of money. I say, listen, you get a block grant per person. So if you get more people, you get more money. Less people, less money. And then you manage it the way you want to manage it. This will save hundreds of billions of dollars than the way the current system is. So, and the last piece that you didn't ask about but is really important is the Social Security Disability Insurance Program. That is going bankrupt in 2016, next year. Do you know there have been months during this administration, during the Obama administration, where more people have signed up for disability insurance than have gotten a job? It has been an exponential growth, and what we've suggested on that is that if you get hurt and you want to get Social Security disability insurance, we say, okay, but first you have to go get a rehabilitation plan, and you have to execute on that rehabilitation plan to see if we can make you better to go back to work.
So it's increased because it's been abused then?
Yes, it's increased because it's been abused. And if you then go through a rehabilitation plan and you can't go back to work, then stay on the program. But also then to give incentives to employers to say, by the way, if a person goes on a rehabilitation plan, we'll give you an incentive to make sure you hire them back so they don't go on the plan. Because I think still most people want to work. They don't want to be sitting home on disability. They want a job. And they want a job that brings value to their lives, both financially and spiritually. So let's help them get there and not make it easy for folks to take that way out. So those are the headlines of what we would do. Those ideas would save over $1 trillion for those systems over the next 10 years. And you have some people who are out there saying, well, no, we shouldn't touch the programs at all. Well, this is the same argument we're having here on the pension and health benefit program. You can take that position, don't touch it at all. But you have two choices then if you say we're not going to touch it programmatically. You either have to let it go insolvent, or you have to massively increase taxes to pay for it. Because this is a math equation, everybody. It's just the way it works. And we'd love to have it be so, that we could say yes to everybody, but we can't. And it's just the way it is. So,
Good luck
thank you for your question. Now, where's the lady who held up the sign saying, "Pick me"?
Thank you.
All right, I usually don't encourage this type of bad behavior, but I'm going to do it. So you said pick me, you'll be the last question today. By the way, everybody, remember when I did this? This could wind up being really good or really bad. Whenever I do this, it goes either way. So go ahead, ma'am. How
I
are
just
you?
have to say I've never gotten in trouble before, so you're my first reprimand. But anyway, my name is Susan Kita, and I am from Warren County. I'm a member of NAMI Warren County, the National Alliance on Mental Illness, and I am a mom. I have a 31-year-old daughter who has suffered from mental illness since she was young, and as she grew up, she started to use drugs to stop the tornado in her head. She has been at Warren County Correctional Facility. She had drug court, failed drug court, ended up at Edna Mann for 3 years in the mental health section. Recently, she maxed out last year and ended up and then in the fall, this past fall, she tried to commit suicide and ended up in Greystone. And I am her mom, I'm her advocate, and I'm here for her. And I noticed that you created a Facing Addiction task force to fight addiction. And could you tell us a little bit about that?
Sure. First off, there have been few things that I've cared about more or worked on harder in my time as governor than what you're talking about. Because I really believe that drug addiction, the same as other mental illnesses, is an illness. And we need to stop looking at it as a moral failing and start looking at it as an illness that we need to try to treat. And everybody makes bad choices and bad decisions in their lives. All of us do. And we've been lucky, most of us, that those bad choices and bad decisions has not led to a life of addiction. And so for your daughter, I am sorry that she failed out of drug court. Drug court is one of the things we've done to try to expand access for folks who are nonviolent offenders, as it sounds like your daughter is, to give them the tools they need to be able to try to deal with their addiction. One of the other problems with dealing with this issue is, as you know, there's enormous stigma that's attached to this. People don't want to talk about it because we still kind of gauge drug addiction as a moral failing and not as an illness. There's not stigma attached to cancer. There's not stigma attached to heart disease. Some people may look at you and say, well, you didn't eat well or you were a smoker, but no one says to you then, like you're kind of getting what you deserve. People say, no, go get treatment, try to cure your cancer, try to cure your heart disease, give you medicine, try to help you. We don't have the same feeling in large parts of the society about drug addiction and alcohol addiction. We somehow think that because they made the choice, and that's a false idea as well, because lots of people just have an addictive personality and it's genetic, that we need to deal with this differently. So the Facing Addiction Task Force has been put together and is working to develop programs that not only complement what we have already in terms of giving people treatment for these problems, but also holding public events that begin to lower the stigma. I think the more prominent people in our society talk about this, the better chance we have in lowering the stigma and letting more people come out and ask for help. A lot of times people who have this problem, as you know, hide in the shadows. They don't want to ask for help because they're made to feel like failures. And they're not happy with themselves either. And when you talked about what you're saying too, when you combine mental illness with this, which often happens, it was a great way you put it, the torrent that was going on in your daughter's head, combined with the addiction, is an extraordinarily difficult problem to deal with. So what we're trying to do is to make treatment more available for folks, and we're being successful at that. The drug court program is being phased in across the entire state over 5 years. We're 3 years into that, because we need to continue to develop more facilities that can take the increased number of people, and more folks at the law enforcement level to be able to deal with this as well. And we're trying to make sure that we talk about this publicly as much as possible to deal with the stigma issue. The last thing I'd say to you is this, that what we need to understand as a society, in my opinion, is that there but for the grace of God go I. Any of these people who will find themselves in this position, it could be me or you. It could be your son or daughter, your grandson or granddaughter, your niece or nephew, your husband or wife, your brother or your sister. This is without regard to education, economic status, success in your employment. It affects everyone in this society. And we cannot just throw these people in jail. It does no good, everybody. Listen, if they're violent, they need to go in jail. We can't have violent people on our streets attacking innocent folks. But so many of the folks that we put in prison now are nonviolent. They're just addicted. And they do petty crimes to support their addiction. We need, as a society, to understand that this can happen to anyone. And I will tell you that for me, and I've told this story a number of times, I'll tell it again today, so you understand that I do understand this. A good friend of mine who I went to law school with, was one of my close friends in law school. He was the smartest of the group of us who studied together. We had a study group. He's the first one who went out and got a really good job. He was one of the editors of the Law Review at Seton Hall. He then went out, he was the first one of the group of us who became a partner in his firm. He married a beautiful woman who was a doctor. They had 3 beautiful daughters. This great career. He was an avid runner, great shape, and he was running 15, 20 miles a week. And he wound up hurting his back from running so much. So he went to the doctor, and the doctor gave him Percocet. He started taking Percocet, and then Oxycontin, and then Percocet and Oxycontin with vodka. And this friend of mine, who was handsome, successful, Ivy League educated undergrad, one of the top people in our class, in our law school class, one of the most successful lawyers I know, with a beautiful home in New Jersey and a great career and an incredible wife and beautiful daughters, became an addict. And we intervened, his friends, we had an intervention. His wife came to us and said, he won't listen to me. You guys need to talk to him. You're his friends forever. So we all went. He was living someplace else. We went, we intervened with him. We got him into treatment a number of different times over a 10-year period of time. And nothing worked. And a year ago, last week, I got the call on a Sunday morning that I dreaded I was going to get for 10 years. That they found him in a hotel room with an empty bottle of Percocet and an empty quart of vodka, dead. He had been divorced. He couldn't see his children. He lost his job. He lost his driver's license. He blew through his retirement money. And he was living in some hotel and wound up dead. If you looked at this person from the outside, you would say, how? You had everything. Everything that our society values. You had it. What are you doing? We said this to him. And we said it to him because we didn't understand. It's addiction. It's an illness. And even when we got him the tools to try to deal with it, he couldn't. There but for the grace of God go I. This is a disease that is going to destroy our country if we continue to force these folks into the shadow and make them feel morally inferior for being ill. And so I'm going to continue to talk about it and do things about it because I want your daughter to have a chance to enjoy the life that you gave her.
Thank
And
you.
for those folks, you know, and I'm one of them who's pro-life, let me tell you something, everybody. Pro-life means being pro-life for the whole life. It's easy. Now, my wife says I say this because I never have been pregnant, but I said, like, it's easy when they're in the womb. She says, not so much. But it gets a lot more complicated when they get out and when they make decisions that are bad ones and they disappoint you and they scare you. And the 16-year-old on the floor of a county jail cell, drug addicted, that life is just as precious as the life in the womb. The life of your daughter, with all the difficulties you just chronicled she has, is still an individual gift from God. And we better start thinking that way as a society. Because if we don't, the next person could be our son or daughter. And we'll never think that that life is worthless when it's our son or daughter. How can we possibly think it when it's yours?
Thank you.
So that's what we're trying to do. I'll be thinking about you and give you, hopefully, that God will give you the strength and the faith to be able to deal with this and to help your daughter. We're going to try to help in every way we can. And we all should be talking about this, because if we do, then every life we save is an individual miracle. Every one. And it can happen to anybody. So that's what we're trying to do. That's what it's about. I want you to give your information to our folks, because there's a bunch of things and a number of different ways that we can be helpful that a lot of people don't know about because we don't talk about this enough. So we'll get one of my staff to talk with you and see if there might be ways we can help with your daughter.
Thank you.
When I was in New Hampshire recently, Mary Pat and I went to visit a place called the Fernham Center, which is a drug rehabilitation treatment center in Manchester, New Hampshire. And they don't do nearly the things yet in New Hampshire that we do in New Jersey in terms of providing treatment, providing law enforcement with Narcan to be able to bring people back when they are in a heroin overdose. They're now doing that in New Hampshire as well, but not as broadly as we've done it. We need to be talking about this issue, and I'm so glad that you brought that up. And like I told you, when someone holds up a sign, my experience at 137 town hall meetings is either the question is really inspirational or they kill me. It's one or the other, right? And I'm really glad that you held up the sign and that I took a chance on the woman who's holding up the sign, because that issue is so important to the future of our state. And I am confident that there's not a parent or a grandparent in this room that does not either have that experience or live with the fear of that experience, the abject fear of that experience. And so if we all feel that, we gotta work to make it better. We have to. We can't just put them in jail and say, good, they're there, we forget about them. We can't do that. And we can't tell people because they made one bad choice one night that they're consigned to our scorn for the rest of their lives. It's not fair, and it's not right, and it's not good for a society like ours that's a free and open and loving society, because we are, you know. So, I didn't mean to get off as long as I did on that, but I will tell you that it's something that I really feel passionately about, and that if we leave any legacy behind for the years I'm as governor, if one of them is that we're going to be more honest about this and we're going to work to help people who have these addiction problems, then that'll be great. I'll say two things before I go. First thing is, thank you for coming. All of you, the people who agree, the people who disagree, I appreciate you coming, because we raised a lot of issues today, a couple of which I now have to learn about. Vision 2030, I got to learn about that now. I tell my kids, like, one of the great things about this job is like it's constantly being in school. They don't think that's such a good thing, but that's because they're young. When they get older, like me, they'll know that being back in school is not a bad thing, because I'm learning new things every day. This job permits me to do it, and these meetings do. So thank you first and foremost for coming. Secondly, been a couple of mentions today about me getting a new job. Here's the thing. I love this job. I love this job. And you all have given me an incredible opportunity. You know, my mom and dad grew up in New Jersey. My mom graduated from Westside High School in Newark from a single mother. She didn't have the money or anything to be able to go to college. She never did. She worked her whole life. My dad lost his father when he was a teenager. Had to go to work right after he got out of high school. Went into the Army during the Korean conflict. Came home from the Army and went to work at the Breyers ice cream plant in Newark. And worked on that line at the Breyers ice cream plant, and he had an older gentleman who worked next to him who kept saying to him, "What are you going to do with your life?" And my father said, "I like this job. Pays good, it's close to home. I get free ice cream. It's a great thing, it's a good job." And this guy kept on him, kept saying, no, you have to go to college. My father said, "Nobody in my family goes to college." He goes, "You're a veteran. You have the GI Bill. This is a waste if you don't go to college." And he just absolutely rode him hard enough that finally one day my father went down to Rutgers in Newark after work and signed up for classes. And 6 years later, while he was working every day at that plant, he had what my mother called our first family picture. It was my mom and dad on his graduation day from Rutgers in Newark in June of 1962 when he graduated with his accounting degree, and my mom was 6 months pregnant with me. And she always called that picture our first